What if everything you've been told about intelligence is wrong? What if the smartest people in the world aren't actually thinking faster than everyone else? Because here's something strange. Many of the people we call geniuses were not considered exceptional when they were young. Some struggled in school. Some were told they weren't smart enough. Some even failed repeatedly. Yet somehow, they ended up changing the world. So what happened? Did their IQ suddenly increase? Or is there something nobody tells us about how genius really works? Today, we're going to uncover one of the biggest myths about intelligence. And by the end of this video, you may never look at IQ the same way again. Stay with me, because the most surprising part comes later. It explains why some people with average IQ scores achieve extraordinary things, while others with very high IQs never reach their potential. Let's begin. From a very young age, most of us are taught the same idea. Smart people are born smart. They naturally understand things faster. They have a special gift. And everyone else? Well, they simply have less of it. It's a comforting story. But psychology paints a much more interesting picture. Researchers have discovered that intelligence is not just about how much information your brain can process. It's also about how you approach problems, how you handle mistakes, how long you stay curious, and most importantly, how you think when nobody knows the answer. Think about that for a moment. In school, you're usually rewarded for getting the right answer. But in real life, the biggest breakthroughs happen when there is no answer sheet, when nobody knows the solution, when everyone else gives up. That's where genius often begins. Here's something fascinating. Many highly intelligent people don't spend their time trying to prove they're smart. Instead, they spend more time being wrong. That sounds strange, doesn't it? But it's true. When researchers study experts across different fields, they find something interesting. The most successful people are often willing to question their own beliefs. They change their minds when new evidence appears. They admit when they don't know something, and they remain curious much longer than most people. Meanwhile, many average thinkers become trapped by certainty. They stop asking questions. They stop exploring. They assume they already know enough. And that's where growth slows down. Now, here's a truth that surprises many people. Geniuses are not always better at finding answers. Sometimes, they're better at finding questions. Think about the greatest inventions in history. Most didn't start with a brilliant answer. They started with a strange question. What if everyone is wrong? What if there's another way? What happens if I try this instead? The ability to ask powerful questions changes everything, because questions open doors, answers close them. And many people spend their lives chasing answers while ignoring the questions that could transform everything. But there's another habit shared by many highly intelligent people. And this one is uncomfortable. They spend a lot of time alone with their thoughts, not because they dislike people, not because they're antisocial, but because deep thinking requires space. Modern life is full of distractions, notifications, messages, videos, endless noise. Yet the brain needs quiet moments to connect ideas, to see patterns, to make unexpected discoveries. Some of the most creative insights happen when you're walking alone, sitting quietly, or simply letting your mind wander. The problem is that many people are uncomfortable with silence. The moment boredom appears, they reach for their phone. And without realizing it, they interrupt the very process that helps ideas grow. Now let's talk about a mistake that keeps millions of people stuck. The belief that intelligence is fixed. If you believe your abilities cannot improve, every challenge becomes a threat. Every mistake feels personal. Every failure becomes proof that you're not smart enough. But when you see intelligence as something that can grow, everything changes. Challenges become opportunities, mistakes become information, failure becomes feedback. This shift may sound simple, but psychologically, it's powerful because the way you view your abilities influences the actions you take every day. And over time, those actions shape your future. Here's something else most people never notice. Geniuses often think slower than expected. Yes, slower, not faster, at least when it matters most. While others rush toward conclusions, they pause. They examine different possibilities. They consider angles that nobody else sees. They resist the urge to jump to easy answers. And that's important, because the first answer that comes to mind is not always the best one. Sometimes the greatest advantage is the ability to stop and think one layer deeper. Imagine two people looking at the same problem. One immediately says, "I know the answer." The other says, "Maybe, but what am I missing?" The second person may appear less confident, but psychologically, that mindset often leads to better decisions because it leaves room for learning, room for discovery, room for growth. Now here's the part most people never hear. The biggest difference between average thinkers and exceptional thinkers isn't intelligence, it's attention. What you consistently pay attention to shapes your reality. Some people notice opportunities, others notice obstacles. Some notice patterns, others notice distractions. Over time, these differences create completely different outcomes. Not because one person was born dramatically smarter, but because they trained their attention in a different direction. And this brings us to one final secret, a secret shared by many remarkable minds throughout history. They never stop learning, not when they become successful, not when they become respected, not even when they become experts. The moment someone believes they know everything, their growth begins to slow. But the people who continue asking questions, continue exploring, continue learning, often keep surprising the world and themselves. So maybe the real lesson isn't that IQ doesn't matter at all. It does matter, but not nearly as much as people think. Because intelligence is more than a number. It's curiosity, it's adaptability, it's patience, it's attention, it's the courage to question assumptions, and the willingness to keep learning long after everyone else has stopped. The smartest people aren't always the ones with the highest IQ. Sometimes they're the ones who never stop growing. And that raises an interesting question. What do you think matters more, natural intelligence or the way a person chooses to think? Have you ever met someone who seemed ordinary at first, but turned out to be incredibly wise? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop your opinion in the comments below, and if this video made you see intelligence differently, make sure you subscribe for more psychology insights. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep thinking deeper than the crowd.